The crimson sky fades fast as the light dissolves to an ominous inky darkness. The stage is now set for one of Africa's most elusive and intriguing game animals. From the cover of thick bush emerge the dark shapes of bushpigs as they prepare to forage and raid the shadows. The bushpig is an unusual creature, capturing the imagination and attention of many hunters worldwide. Despite being a common species in its range, its secretive habits and uncanny ability to avoid being seen make the bushpig a true trophy for any hunter who is prepared to take up the challenge with the ghosts of darkness. Preferring moister habitats with dense vegetation and softer soils, bushpigs share their environment with red duiker, bushbuck, endangered Simango monkey, the nocturnal porcupine, and many other species. Bushpig are generalist omnivores. Obvious signs of bushpig activity show where they have torn up the ground with their tough, disc-shaped nasal plates, searching for roots, insects, shrubs, fallen fruit and birds' eggs. Their diet also includes carrion, and bushpigs are occasionally found scavenging at baits intended for leopard. Considered to be strictly nocturnal, bushpigs are active in the cooler daylight hours and can be seen feeding in open spaces and marshes, in areas where they are not persecuted by man. Mature boars differ from sows in having two enlarged wart-like protuberances on the face, well-developed cheek and jawbones, as well as being generally larger in size. Hide color in bushpigs vary, with the most common colors being red to black, with a light grey-white colored mane and face. White and grey bushpigs are occasionally encountered. This is not a result of age, but purely a color variation. Young bushpigs sport lateral white stripes down their red coats, which fade at around the age of 6 months. Piglets are born year-round, with a peak during the summer months of November to February, when food is plentiful. Litter size averages 3, although up to 7 piglets have been recorded. Bushpigs are well known for being highly destructive crop raiders. They are regarded as pests to many commercial and subsistence crop farmers throughout southern, east and central Africa. Bushpigs find crops such as maize, sugarcane and potatoes irresistible, whilst also being fond of pineapples, avocados and pecan nuts.
We've just come from a bait that we've been baiting up at charcoal, and it was pretty quiet up there. And now we've come down to another spot where we've been feeding, but the pigs have been eating a lot of our seed cane, and we're just going to go pop down here where we started feeding to see what we can find. And there's apparently quite a nice sounder there, so we'll see what we can find. Okay. quite white, eh?
Mm.
Well, earlier on we were setting up at a bait. We were there about 6:30. We sat until sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock. It was extremely quiet, and we'd been baiting on a bait for a couple of days now, and the pigs were taking it where we've got a lot of seed cane. And yeah, we decided to move down to that one and just take a quiet walk and just to see what activity was there. And we managed to surprise the sounder of 4 or 5 pigs, which also surprised us. And we shone the torch and managed to get a shot off. Not a successful shot, but we followed up in very thick reed bed and managed to finish off this nice sow. The 7x57. It's always worked for us.
Maize farmers in particular often face excessive financial losses due to the bush pigs' acquired taste for maize, destroying thousands of hectares of crops every season. Once maize seed has been planted, bush pigs will move along the rows at night, shoveling with their disc-shaped snouts and sniffing out the planted maize seeds, destroying row after row every evening. They clear huge areas, resulting in farmers having to replant the upturned maize lands, a large financial and time-consuming burden.
We're here on a farm about 20 k's out of town. We got called by the farmer who said he's had some problems with bush pig eating his maize. At about 9:30 we were on the property. As you can see, it's drizzling a little bit. We walked around for about 15-20 minutes. Luckily we saw this one young boar.
And yeah, lights came on. The pig had already moved across, run across the road, got into some longer grass, but luckily stopped for a brief second and we were able to get a good shot in. He has got a snare around his one foot, which is quite badly sort of deformed. It seems like it's an old wound that is healed over, but yeah, he would have been taking some strain, so it's actually quite sort of fortunate for the pig that we managed to get him. And yeah, one shot went straight down.
What they're actually doing is they come in and they go down the row, down the furrow, and they actually just shovel their noses down and pull out all the maize. And then they leave it alone and they come back as soon as the cob formation starts and you've had pollination. The cobs are pretty sweet and pretty palatable, and they come in and they just flatten huge areas.
Large open areas of broken down maize plants reveal where pigs have been feeding on the much sought after maize cobs. Showing a preference for particular maize varieties over others, bush pigs will pass through different fields to feed on and destroy vast expanses of the preferred maize varieties.
They come in and they pick out the earlier varieties. And also with other varieties, there's some maize that's obviously a bit sweeter, a bit more palatable, and they seem to have this ability to pick it out. We've had variety trials, where the pigs have come in and they've picked out a variety and they've gone down, taken out 4 or 5 rows of that variety and turned around and come back, found the replication of the same variety in the trial and come back and nailed that as well. It looks like a tractor's driven through the land.
Bush pigs will usually enter the maize field silently, beginning to feed 10 to 50 meters deep into the maize. They will normally feed parallel to the roads or contours, occasionally crossing these openings where they can be ambushed.
As you can see in front of us, we have a female bush pig. We were busy hunting on the premises just outside of the little town that we come from. This farmer friend of mine has got problems with maize, and his pigs spend their time giving the farmers quite a lot of trouble eating the cobs as they start forming. We had finished hunting where we thought the pigs were going to be, and then myself and the video man, Clive, we're walking way back to the vehicle. We're talking and saying, this destruction we're seeing looks like monkeys because it's so close on the road. Next minute the maize is parting, things are happening, and this pig stands in front of us, very luckily at about 50 yards. As you can see with this firearm, we've got night vision as the scope, and then there's a spotlight attached to it just in case we need to see what's happening. We were lucky enough that the pig stood long enough that we could see it with the night vision, got a shot off, and then you may see from the footage that it wasn't the greatest of shots, it was spined a bit further back. It's quite an old sow, it's got quite a lot of scars on the front, on its legs, especially on the side where I'm sitting on. We think it's at least 8 or 9 years. It's got quite big tushes in the front here, which is something that you don't normally see, especially on the top ones, because they get ground down so much from eating. But an old sow all the same, and a good hunt.
Porcupines are often found in the company of bush pigs, eating the majority of the remaining seed on the partially eaten fallen cobs. One of the most important factors to consider when hunting bush pigs in mature maize fields is wind direction. Bush pigs have an exceptionally good sense of smell. A deep grunt preludes a long dark silence, an obvious sign that the bush pigs are aware of the hunter's presence. They will silently group together, moving like ghosts deeper into the maize, where they will wait, listen and smell for danger for up to an hour before commencing to break down plants and feed. Walking into the maize after feeding pigs can also be effective where the maize is reasonably clean or open. This method requires good nerves and a favorable wind direction. By sneaking as quietly as possible through the dangling leaves of the adult maize, one needs to use the sound of breaking stalks and chewing to guide one into their feeding area. As bush pig sounders often number 3 to 7 pigs, care must be taken to try and account for the whereabouts of each pig as they spread out and feed in a radius of up to 30 meters. Hunting pigs in this manner is intense and requires planning and confidence, and can result in very close range shooting at 1 or 2 meters. At a shot, the pigs scatter madly in all directions, running dangerously close to the hunter, sometimes bowling him over and slashing clothing or flesh with their razor-sharp lower canines. boars can become very aggressive and attack, particularly when there are piglets present. Many hunters have been treed by an enraged bushpig.
Right, well, we came out this evening to have a look in some maize where there's been a lot of maize damage, and Jason joined me this evening. We followed up on a group of pigs that were feeding deep in the maize. We had no option but to walk in after them, try and get as close as possible. We managed to get pretty close. The pigs grunted and they were aware of our presence, but we pursued them a little bit more, followed them up, and we actually started talking. A pig started eating again right next to us, deep in the maize. I managed to shine the white light of the light force light through the maize, and I could pick out the shape of a pig's ear. So I managed to put a shot into the one pig into the shoulder. At that shot, Jason heard another pig next to us, and he turned and shone his light, and he was using a shotgun with solid slugs, and he managed to squeeze off a quick shot to another pig that was standing right there, even with us talking. And this is what we ended up with, a young boar and a young sow, presumably from the same litter. And very interesting hunt, very close range. I think the shots were probably about 8 yards and 5 yards.
Despite the bush pig's apparently small size, they are solid animals, requiring a powerful cartridge. When selecting your firearm, the following factors need to be considered. Bush pigs are usually hunted at night, at reasonably close ranges, and often on the move. A recommended setup includes a familiar medium to large caliber scoped rifle. Popular and proven bush pig calibers include the 7x57, 308, 3006, 300 and 375. Heavy, soft nose, expanding bullets, ranging from 170 to 220 grains, are preferable, giving better results to a less than perfect shot. Lighter calibers and bullets may be used successfully. However, due to the terrain in which one hunts bush pigs, one needs the pig to stop and stay stopped. The crop farmer may accept lost and wounded pigs, but the hunter should not. Scopes may vary, but a low magnification such as a 4x with a large objective diameter is best suited for nighttime conditions. allowing for a quick and clear target acquisition. Scopes with red dot or adjustable illuminated reticles are favorable for hunting on moonlit evenings where the crosshairs are barely visible. When shooting by moonlight, the white hair on the head and mane of the bushpig provides a good reference point to find and orientate the scope's crosshairs. Alternatively, a good quality night vision scope can be attached to the rifle. Basic image intensifying tubes such as Generation 1 are effective for certain conditions, for example baits, but more advanced image intensifying tubes such as Generation 2 and 3 give a clearer and sharper image at longer ranges on darker nights. Infrared illumination enhances any of the tubes. However, bushpigs will normally react when the seemingly invisible infrared illumination is switched on, either by excessive blinking, freezing, or by scattering. If one cannot afford the luxury of a night vision scope, the more traditional method is to attach or strap a light or torch to the firearm. Various forms of lights or torches are available, from spotlights to floodlights, powered by 6 or 12 volt batteries which can be carried in a small back or waist pack. A large spotlight is preferable when shooting over longer ranges, such as newly planted maize and potato fields. A smaller floodlight has often proved more effective for close-range hunting, as a brighter spotlight shone onto pigs at close ranges will almost always result in the immediate scattering of the bushpigs in all directions. A successful method used whilst stalking feeding pigs in maize or sugarcane is to shine the softer floodlight directly upwards, bringing it down slowly onto the top of the maize or cane, allowing the pigs to become familiar with the light before bringing it down to look through the bush for any movement of the feeding pigs. A red lens or light has no advantage over using white light whilst stalking feeding pigs. When shooting through bush, a white light allows the hunter to see a much clearer image of the target when the target is partially obscured.
We're going to be shooting the most popular bushpig cartridges or shells. We're going to be shooting LG, SG, SSG, slugs and testing AAA. We'll be testing those at a distance of 5 and 15 yards and seeing what sort of spread we've got off the different shotguns and the effective sort of kill area considering the number of pellets that are in the kill zone.
Many hunters in pursuit of bushpigs commonly use double-barreled or semi-automatic 12-gauge shotguns. The most popular shot sizes include LG, SG, SSG, AAA, and a variety of solid slugs. Shotguns can be highly effective for close range and quick shooting at moving targets in thick cover. However, shot placement and range is critical.
I'm going to be shooting a 12 gauge as well, Gorazable, shorter barrels, 27.5 inch barrels, half choke and full choke, and underneath the barrels here you see there's a little bit of a modification. That's just for following pigs up in the maze if we need to. I can clamp a tracer light onto the shotgun so that we've pretty much got a hands-free kit so we can see what we're doing. Pellets circled here are from the half choke barrel. Remembering that LG has 8 pellets, all 8 pellets are accounted for. At 15 yards, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. As you can see, quite a spread. And then the balance of the shots, which are here, is the choke barrel. Now, if you consider the size of a pig's skull, like this. At 15 yards you've got a pig standing there out in the open or in the maze. You'll be pretty lucky if you get one of the pellets hitting where it needs to hit. A lot of them will be spreading all over the place, lodging under skin. So it's quite important to bear in mind your distance when it comes to shooting with LG. A lot of pellets you'll find hitting the skull deflecting off underneath the skin and lodging under the skin here and not actually penetrating through to the brain cavity, which is inside here. As you can see here, here's the side-on view. There's the eye here. So anywhere in this region here. So effectively you've got an area this big to be shooting to get a brain shot on a pig. But as you can see from the pellets and the spread, not very effective.
A randomly placed shot with any of the mentioned shot shells is not enough to warrant sufficient damage, resulting in shotguns having a high wound rate. Bushpigs have relatively thick hides, tough skulls, and large muscle volume in the shoulder region. Therefore, penetration and spread are important factors to consider when hunting bushpigs with a shotgun. Solid slugs have excellent results on bushpigs, often exiting the pig and producing too large wound channels and excessive bleeding. Slugs can be shot accurately over ranges up to 50 meters. Considering most bushpigs are shot at a distance of 10 to 25 meters, solids, such as the heavy 500 grain penetrator, propelled at 1,214 feet per second, produce excellent results.
What we're trying to simulate now is a common scenario. In other words, a pig that is 2 or 3 meters into the maze, and you can just get an outline or a shadow of the pig, and you're shooting at a target or a general shape, and we are wanting to see what effect foreign matter in front of or between you and the pig will have on the various shot sizes. We're going to test AAA, which is the smallest of the recommended shot sizes on pig, LG, which is the largest of the shot sizes, and then a 12 gauge solid slug.
This is the result of our sort of practical test of shooting through brush. We shot through these weeds behind us. It's not quite the same thickness as maize, but it still gives one sort of a general idea of penetration and obstructions. The first shot was AAA at about 8 yards. The second shot was LG, also at 8 yards. And then the solid penetrator, a 12 gauge slug, also at about 8 yards. And they all seem to perform pretty well, but the important thing to remember is distance. The further away you are, the more widespread your pattern will be, and the more ineffective the shot will be. So it's quite important to get close as you can with a shotgun. An important thing to remember is that you must always check your shotgun with particular shot. Check your shotgun with LG, with SG, with SSG. See what the grouping is or the patterning is with your particular shotgun. Today proved same shotguns or almost identical shotguns, both 12 gauge, half choke and full choke, perform differently. Although they're different length barrels, they perform differently, and some were more compatible, or the one was more compatible to SG than the other. So I think it's always an important thing to know what your shotgun is going to do and how your shotgun is going to perform with what you're shooting through it. So it's always important to go out and test it at a range, see what it does for yourself before going out and using it in the field.
Perhaps one of the most common and well-used methods for hunting bushpigs is baiting. Bushpigs are creatures of habit, returning to favored feeding areas on a regular basis. Placing an enticing bait in an area where recent bushpig activity has been recorded will often result in the pigs feeding and returning night after night to eat the bait. Common ingredients include a variety of maize derivatives such as maize meal, hominy chop, maize seed, as well as molasses meal, discarded fruits and vegetables, and carrion. Time and cost often dictate what bait is used, but a very cost-effective and simple bait is hominy chop. This commercial stock feed, when mixed with water and left to ferment in a large drum, produces a sweet-smelling, sloppy bait which bushpigs find irresistible. It may take the pigs a few nights to discover the bait, but once they do, they will usually return timeously every evening. Trail timing devices of various brands are available, which can record time, photos or video, via infrared detonation, providing insight to the time of activity, as well as the numbers and sex of the pigs feeding on the bait. Only a small bucket full of bait needs to be poured every evening at the same place. To avoid the demolition of bait by monkeys, warthogs or other game, the bait should only be set late in the afternoon and should be covered with leaf litter or grass to avoid visual detection. In areas where porcupines are numerous, a shallow hole can be dug, into which the bait can be poured and then covered with large football-sized rocks. Unlike the smaller and weaker porcupines, bushpigs should be able to displace these rocks to feed on the bait. The sound of knocking rocks also helps to alert the hunter to the presence of the pigs. Porcupines are common visitors to the baits, approaching the bait site very noisily before settling down and feeding on the bait, sounding frustratingly similar to feeding bushpigs. Feeding times can vary from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. depending on how nervous the pigs are and the distances travelled, but they will usually return at the same time each evening, spending 30 minutes on average at the bait site.
We're up in a bait site on a farm in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. We've got a bait up in this indigenous forest here, a lovely spot with a stream behind us, as you can hear. We've had this bait going for about 3 weeks now, and the pigs have been feeding pretty well on this bait. We've been baiting here with harmony chop and with molasses and maize seed. And the pigs found it pretty soon after we'd put it down, and we built a blind at the same time just to let the pigs get used to it. And there's a couple of paths coming in onto this bait, so the pigs are using sort of different access routes, and there's quite a few porcupines coming in onto this bait as well. We've sat up here once just to have a look, see what was happening, and the pigs were coming around us, and a hell of a lot of porcupines coming in on here as well. The bait site here looks like a bit of a mess. We had a lot of rain last night, and fortunately the pigs fed before the rain, and so it's obliterated a lot of the tracks, but you can still pick up some of the traction on the pigs last night. Seems like there's probably about 3 or 4 pigs in here, some decent sized pigs feeding on this bait. Against this tree on the back here, we normally have a little trail timer on there that helps us, well, takes the guesswork out of what time the pigs are coming in. And it's just a little digital laser that records every minute of movement up to 10 meters. So we've had this set up, and the last 2 nights the pigs seem to have been in, well, pigs and porcupines, but the activity has been sort of around between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock up to 9:30 in the evening. You can see that there's some rocks here because of the porcupine activity and the porcupines eating a lot of the bait. We ended up digging a hole and putting the rocks on top of the bait, putting the bait in the hole and putting the rocks on top. what this does is effectively those rocks are too big for a porcupine to move, and the porcupines can surely eat what they can around between the rocks, but they can't get to the core of the bait. And when pigs come in, they've got the strength to be able to shift those rocks off with their nose and get at the main bait. So if you come here on the following day and you see rocks pretty much strewn all over the place, and there's lots of horseflies in this forest, then you pretty much know the pigs have been in, they've pushed the rocks out, they're scattered all over the spot, and then the pigs have obviously eaten up all the bait. So it just avoids other animals kind of creeping in and sneaking all your bait out of there, becoming a bit expensive. Up behind us here you can see our blind for this bait. It's a pretty nice blind. It's about 3 meters off the ground. Quite a bit of cover on it. You don't have to go overboard. The pigs they can see pretty well, but not that well. They rely more on their sense of smell at night. As long as you don't move too much, you're pretty much fine. The blind, as we said earlier, is about 18, 19, 20 yards away from the bait, and got a nice sort of easy shot down onto the bait, and hopefully the pigs will come in from the back this evening, not from the back of the bait, not from behind us. Right, here we've got a big sow. As you can see, she's white, pretty unusual. A well-earned pig. Everybody here has worked hard. Gary, Graham here, he's the farmer, the farm that we've taken this pig on. Been checking baits and putting baits out every day, working very hard at this. And these pigs have given us a slip for a couple of nights, and perseverance eventually paid off. We had 3 pigs come in here this evening. This sow and 2 other sub-adults. Very misty night. They hung around for about 2.5 hours before they came in onto the bait, and eventually came in and gave us a shot. And yeah, she's very big, very unusual. As I say, it's not often that you get to see a white pig like this. Yeah, one shot to the 7x57 to the head, and she went down on the spot. And unfortunately, we didn't get her on the pig cam as it was too misty, but yeah, what can you do? Anyway, but Graham, thanks very much for all the baiting and all the hard work that you guys have put in for this pig. Pigging certainly is hard work. Every now and then you get lucky and you just stumble across a pig and bang it, but most pigs take a lot of hard work, and this thanks to the farmer and the staff for baiting and checking baits for us every day. Much appreciated.
Blinds should be built 10 to 30 meters downwind from the bait, preferably elevated. Note should be taken of paths from where the pigs generally enter and leave the bait site, with the blind placed accordingly. As bush pigs are wary of new structures, blinds should be built as soon as possible, allowing the pigs a few nights to get used to the new structure, especially when placed close to the bait for bow hunting. Avoid leaving unnecessary scent or objects around the bait or blind area.
here we are with a nice big sow. I'm here with the sugarcane farmer, farm manager, Derek Johnson. Derek runs this area and controls all this cane, and been kind enough to let us bait pigs in here. Pigs seem to be doing a lot of damage to this area, and over the last couple of weeks we've managed to put up quite a few baits all over the farm. About 3 or 4 baits so far, I think. Yeah. And this is just one of the baits that we've been working on. Nice big boar's been coming in here with the whole sounder, and we were hoping to get the boar this evening, coming in early, but this sow took us by surprise. We actually thought it was the boar. Came in at about 7:30, or hung around at about 7:30, but came onto the bait at about 10:02. It was a bit too dark to shoot with natural light, so we ended up using the red light and brought it down onto her slowly, and Derek managed to give her a whammer of a shot and put her down on the spot. And yeah, like Derek said earlier, it's quite an unusual sow. She's got quite a long mane all the way down to her back here, to the back of her, by her bum here, long white hair. She seems like a pretty old sow, and we're not sure whether she is part of that same sounder. Every now and then you could get a sow that comes in early, or a boar that's sort of on its own, or just a straggler, or beating the rest of the sounder to the bait. And so fortunately we might have another night to come in and still carry on baiting here, and hope to get that boar in and come sit up here for him again, probably in a week or so time if they come back.
Blind construction can vary from single commercial or homemade tree stands to scaffolding and natural structures. Basic essential requirements in any blind include a quiet, comfortable seating position, as one can sometimes be seated for many hours in cold conditions, a rifle and scope rest to avoid any unnecessary movement, and enough cover to hide any movement in the blind. Although bush pigs do not rely on their sight at night, they will detect exaggerated movement in the blind. Other equipment that may be needed, such as night vision, batteries, torches, switches, or that flask of hot coffee, should be placed on a blanket to reduce any noise when picking up or placing down such objects. When bow hunting, care must be taken to ensure there is sufficient space to hang and to draw the bow without any obstructions. If using a rifle or shotgun, the weapon should be loaded and kept on safe, pushing it quietly off safe once the pigs have been detected, as the slightest click of a safety will usually send the pigs scuttling back into the shadows. Similarly, when bow hunting, one needs to nock an arrow as soon and as quietly as possible. Rheostat lights set over baits provide a means of lighting that will normally not disturb the pigs if used correctly. A red, blue or orange light or lens hung on a branch a meter or so above a bait is connected to a rheostat switch and battery pack in the blind. By increasing the intensity of the light very gradually, bush pigs will often carry on feeding, unawares of the light around them. The intensity is increased until there is sufficient light to fire a well-placed shot at the target.
Well done. Okay, can you see spotlight, please? Oh man.
Very hard to find those crosshairs, and I thought, I don't know. I don't want to screw it up this way. Oh, that's too bad. Isn't that a shame? Christ. It's amazing.
We've been out since about 6 o'clock this evening with my new friend Clive here, who's master of the bush pig. This boar, this is an average sized boar, came in with a couple of piglets, which I guess is a bit unusual, but despite the fog, we were able to get a good look at it, and when we got it into the proper position, I was able to take it with one pretty decent shot through the shoulder. So it's been a great experience. This bush pig hunting is it's like the little critters. I mean, this is not easy. You don't just walk into these things. You really have to put a lot into it. And they're very wary. They have excellent hearing and smelling, and they're very difficult to hunt. You don't see these during the day. So it's a real treat to learn something about them, as well as take one that I'll have mounted just as you see them, and it just make a great collection to the trophy room. I think that there probably aren't many people who have the opportunity to hunt these like this, and I'm real happy about it. It's just it's a great little trophy, and I'm real pleased to have the opportunity.
Shot placement on a bush pig is critical. Due to the exaggerated drop of the spine in the shoulder region, the heart sits very low and slightly behind the shoulder, therefore requiring a shot 1/3 up the body and a hand's width behind the shoulder. Alternatively, a brain shot may be taken, placing the sight on the base of the ear or slightly above center between the eyes for a frontal shot, obviously depending on the angle. A broadside shot placed in the center of the shoulder will break the low-lying spine, immobilizing the pig immediately, thus requiring the ethical coup de grace. Occasionally, sitting in the blind quietly after a successful shot with a rifle, shotgun or bow, bush pigs will return to feed on the bait, allowing an opportunity at another pig should this be required.
Just before 7, about 6:30, we came up to sit into one of our blinds that we've got. We've got a problem with the cane, and we were there just before 7 in the blind, sitting quietly, when we heard activity start up at about 7 o'clock. The activity was right through until 7, 8 o'clock, and then it was quiet, and then everyone on the hour, every hour there was activity close by. Until about 11:30, when a sounder moved in. A sow came down first of all, and she started feeding. Shortly thereafter, this big boar came in with another sow and chased her off. And shortly thereafter, another sow came in with a whole lot of piglets, and we took out the boar out of that sounder that was feeding on the bait. You know, it was a beautiful trophy, quite a pretty pig, as you can see. He's got some nice big sized warts.
The follow-up on a bushpig that is taken to thick cover after a shot should be done slowly and cautiously. A wounded bushpig must be regarded as highly dangerous and can inflict serious injury. Dense vegetation such as sugarcane, maize, thick forest or brush hampers one's movement and visibility. A double-barreled or semi-automatic shotgun, mounted with a good spotlight, is the best option for quick and close shooting. When bow hunting or even rifle hunting, allow a pig that has run off into the bush at least 40 minutes before attempting to follow up, giving the pig time to succumb to its injuries or to stiffen up. It is often in this waiting period that other pigs return to the bait. Hunting the elusive bushpig with a bow under nocturnal conditions presents many new challenges to a bow hunter. Waiting patiently in an elevated blind or tree stand overlooking a well-used bait site is the preferred method used by bow hunters. Camouflage clothing is not essential. Good blind construction to conceal the hunter and any movement is a priority. Scent lock clothing has a distinct and proven advantage when hunting from ground blinds or when stalking pigs in farmlands. Similarly, pop-up scent lock blinds work well, allowing the hunter to remain undetected in swirling winds where an elevated position is not available. In this DVD, we will discuss the use of compound bows. The minimum recommended setup is a draw weight of at least 55 pounds, firing a carbon or aluminium arrow tipped with a well-constructed fixed blade or mechanical broadhead. As most shots with a bow will be taken at very close ranges, from 10 to 20 yards, a slightly heavier arrow setup of approximately 450 grains at a moderate velocity will deliver enough kinetic energy to ensure sufficient penetration. Shorter axle-to-axle length compound bows, such as 30 to 34 inches, are recommended when bow hunting from a blind, as shots are often taken from seated or kneeling positions in confined spaces. In low light conditions, illuminated fiber optic sight pins found in most of the modern compound bows prove to be effective. However, under no light conditions, the rear peep sight is not visible, and the glow of the illuminated sight pin obscures the target. Alternatively, a well-fitted laser sight is best suited for these dark conditions, as it gives the hunter a point of impact reference on your target. These lasers are best fitted as close as possible to the corresponding sight pin used at the particular range. It is essential to determine the range at which the shot will be taken at any particular bait, so that the laser sight can be adjusted to correspond with the front sight at the exact distance. Should the target be further or closer than the set distance, point of impact will vary. Therefore, the hunter needs to know the trajectory of the arrow at different predetermined ranges. The use of a laser sight is also effective when stalking feeding pigs in the maize lands, but again, range is a very important factor, as shots are taken at random distances under these circumstances. The use of a biscuit rest is recommended, as this prevents the arrow from making any noise whilst drawing the bow, and also prevents the arrow from slipping off the rest and making a noise. An illuminated nock allows the hunter to trace the flight path of the arrow in the dark and judge the point of impact on the target. Upon passing through or falling out of a bushpig, a brightly colored arrow wrap helps the hunter to recover the arrow in the thick bush.
Basically, for this evening's bushpig hunt, we're going to be attempting to take a bushpig with a bow. The equipment we're using tonight is the PSC X-Force, a relatively new bow on the market, very, very fast. We've got it set at just under 70 pounds. Loaded up on the front of the sight here, we've got it rigged up with a laser, which is connected via a trigger on my left hand. Basically what this does, this particular bow shoots very, very flat. So anything from 15 to 25 yards,
the laser is basically dead on, and it allows us to be able to shoot in low light conditions. We don't have to worry about the rear peep or anything like that. Basically put the dot on the pig and squeeze the shot off, and hopefully all going well we should come up with a pig. This evening we'll be using ST Epic arrow shafts tipped with mechanical broadhead. Basic weight of the entire setup is 475 grains, 125 grain Spitfire broadhead on the end. Blind is set up. We're going to have a few practice shots now just to make sure there's nothing wrong with any of the gear. And another interesting thing is that we're going to be using a biscuit rest this evening. Reason for that, twofold: very, very quiet, and because we can't switch any lights on, pigs are very, very nervous as it is. It basically allows us to have the arrow in place, be able to draw without worrying about the arrow falling off the rest. Makes it very, very quiet, but very user friendly, particularly in low light conditions. So that is basically the setup we've got for this evening, and all going well, we'll get ourselves a pig. We've got very, very good blood here. We've given him 10 minutes. He's basically run off in that direction into the brush behind me, and we are now going to go and follow up. Made a lot of noise up there, so hopefully we find him dead. And yeah,
that could be just.
Arrow's worked its way loose. Got very, very thick blood on it. I think we've got possibly a hot shot here. Quite frothy as well, so possibly heart and lungs, which is exactly what we were looking for. But that's very thick. I love it.
Right, well, we came in this afternoon on a bait that pigs have been hitting for quite a while, with a plan to take a pig with a bow. At about 8:30, this pig came in. She came in on her own, and through the night vision I could see pretty clearly that she was a little bit nervous of coming on onto the bait. We had the infrared night cameras on her, and she moved off, and about half an hour later came back on again.
Basically, at the shot, immediately took off, headed into the bush behind us, across a small little track we've got here. In total, pig probably covered in the region of about 35-38 meters. It wasn't too far into the bush, probably 8 to 10 meters, that we picked up the arrow shaft. Judging by the amount of blood that she had left behind, as well as the blood on the arrow, it indicated that we'd hit either lung and heart, or certainly heart on its own. Blood very, very thick, very, very red, and yeah, she didn't go very far at all, and so a very nice, effective, clean kill.
Yeah, I'd like to mention on that as you can see, it's a sow, it's not a boar. You've got to take your opportunities when they arise, and any bush pig is a trophy, whether it is a sow or a boar. The fact of the matter is that just to get one, particularly a mature one, shouldn't itself be considered a trophy. And yeah, I think everybody should be happy with any sort of pig that they can get hold of. Obviously a boar would be nice, but you can't always take it. This was a sow that was all on her own. She's got a couple of cut marks in her, so that probably means she was kicked out of a sounder. And yeah, she probably came before the whole sounder came in onto the bait this evening. But you know, you've got to take your chances when they come, and Trev made a good shot on her, and I think it's an excellent trophy and something to be proud of. So it was good shooting, and congratulations, Trev.
Thank you very much.
Good, well done.
Hello everybody, my name is Tony Vasela, and I am the current owner of Spirit of Africa Taxidermy in South Africa, where we work on a large range of animals, birds and reptiles and fish. But today we're here to talk about bushpig, and the reason we're here to talk about bushpig is to just clarify some very special things about the actual skinning and preparation for taxidermy. Okay folks, we're going to do a bit of a discussion on the differences between the male and female bush pig, and I think, as you can see on this DVD, the obvious differences between the two, the male being the one on my left, the female on the right here, and some of the problems that come with skinning these animals is the warts and the gristle that is involved on the male's face. Hey, one thing we'd like to talk about now is the options that you have after you've actually shot your animal. You can have a shoulder mount done, you can have a life-size mount done, you can have the skin tanned, you can have the skulls bleached, and anything in between. It's really up to yourself, and obviously at the end of the day it comes back down to cost and how much room you've got in your house to display these animals, okay? Okay, this bush pig was hunted last night and it's still very fresh. And so we'll just go through the procedures now for a shoulder mount. And what I would suggest is that a shoulder mount on any species, regardless of what it is, you should always cut about halfway down the belly, from the back down to the belly. And the reason for that is, as I said before, is that you give the taxidermist more skin than he needs for the job. Okay? If you cut the animal anywhere less than that, your taxidermist is going to battle doing a shoulder mount or a special pose for you, and it might even be a pedestal mount, and you won't have enough skin. So halfway is always a good thing. You're not going to do very much with the back skin anyway, okay, if you're doing a shoulder mount. So forget about the back, concentrate on the front, the bit that's going to be hanging on the wall, and take your sharp knife and start at the back if you can, and work your way all the way in a straight line down to the centre of the belly, go down both sides, and keeping in mind that your blade should come from the skin and pull up. And when I say that, I mean don't cut over the hair, because not only do you damage the hair, but you also damage the sharpness of your knife, okay? Especially on pig hair, your blade will dull very quickly, become blunt. So once you've done your incision all the way around, as I said before, in a complete circle, don't jag your knife like that. If your knife's sharp, you should be able to control your knife all the way down until you get to the centre of the animal. You'll see that this bush pig has already had its entrails removed to keep it fresh. So once you've come down to the belly, okay, you need to then make your way up here, all the way up the back of the leg. And for a shoulder mount, you can stop anywhere around the hock here somewhere, and you just go around the hock there, open it right up, and what happens then is you can then start skinning and opening it like a book. You do the same on this side, okay, being very careful not to make holes. Any holes that you make have to be stitched up. You can have problems later on. And once you can get back down both the legs, back to the main cut, you can then start to sock this cape backwards towards the face. And when I say socking is the same thing as if you're pulling a sock off your foot. It works exactly the same way, except it's just not as easy, okay? You pull, skin, all the way around until you get to the back of the skull, and you try and get in as far as you can with your knife, and then you come in from the front. Some people like to lay the pig on its back, and to make the caping of this animal a lot easier, they actually skin it from the bottom lip, from the centre of its bottom lip, all the way down its belly to the chest area. And what that does, it allows the cape to come off of the animal's skull basically the same way as you would open a book. It's just so much more easy to do that. Some taxidermists like myself don't like that because it involves a lot of stitching afterwards. And because you know, the bush pigs, and while we're talking about pigs, warthogs as well, do not have a lot of hair on their bodies. Sometimes it's very difficult to disguise the stitching and then cover that up so it's not seen. So I've come up with a process where we can remove the capes without having to cut them underneath, but it is far more difficult. And one of the downsides to doing this process is that you actually you don't get to keep the skull, because we actually have to break the skull to remove it from what I would call the tubed out cape. I come in from behind the pig and skin the skin forward towards the animal's face, and skin in between the flesh and the skin, obviously making sure not to remove, to make any holes in the skin. And when you get to about the back portion of the skull here, you're going to find that that's where the difficulty is going to really kick in the way that all of these obstacles, the lumps and bumps of the skull, are going to be very hard to get around. So what I do is I take a nice knife about that size there with a nice stiff straight blade, and I poke it in between the skull and the skin. Now remember, on these animals the skin is actually touching the skull. There is actually no meat between the skull and the skin in and around this nose area here. It's only when you get to the cheeks and the face where you're going to find a lot of flesh. Okay, so I take a knife and I just basically very carefully poke it in between the skin and the skull, very carefully, and obviously the sharper it is, the better it's going to be. And I work my way, just turn the knife around, I work my way around and around, digging in, underneath the skin, between the skull and the skin, until I slowly remove that skin from the skull. Now you can only work to a certain point where you're going to find that the skin no longer wants to move. So then what I do is I then come from the front of the animal and I open up its mouth, and I work in from the mouth area. Once you remove the cape, these warts that you see here and all of this lump area needs to be what we call split open, okay? Now there are a couple of ways you can do that, but what I find the easiest way is to actually take a scalpel, very sharp scalpel blade, and come in from behind the wart and choose a point that is going to face away from you when that head's hanging on the wall. So again, you won't see any stitch marks or patchwork. And you cut from the top of the wart and you skin, and you can skin down the back to somewhere about there, and then you can actually open up that wart, and with a sharp scalpel blade you can remove the cartilage. Okay, now what that helps is that when you put salt on the skin later, the salt's going to penetrate those warts and preserve them properly. If you don't do that, the warts will shrink so much that the taxidermist is going to have problems soaking back the skin on this animal, and more than likely these skins the warts will shrink so much that the taxidermist will have to rebuild them and make them look like they did when it was shot. And it doesn't always look the same, so I would recommend skinning them out. The same would go for this area here. You'll find that in this mouth, in the back of the jaw area here, there's it's like a gland, and there's a lot of very thick fatty tissue there that needs to be opened up or removed. Okay, so then again, so the salt can penetrate and get to the back of the hair where it's supposed to, so it can preserve the skin. And anywhere else that you think that is thick, any fleshy areas, any thick gristle, cartilage, whatever it might be, it needs to be opened up, okay, so that the salt can get to the base of the hair. The lips, again, the lips on the animal and the nose and the ears all need to be split or turned, another term that we use. And what that means basically is inverting them, and also so the salt can get to the bottom of the hair. When you get to the base of the ears, you'll find where the ears actually go into the animal's skull is a very small cartilage point. Now you need to go to the very bottom of that cartilage point so that the taxidermist can use that cartilage to recreate the proper detail inside that ear when the head's mounted. Now if you're going to do a life-size mount, it's a very similar process, except you need to know where the cuts are going to go on the legs, a little bit more important. All right. So you basically do the same thing, you skin all the way up here, up the legs, but this time don't cut the hooves off. You need to skin all the way to the base of your hoof and remove it from the knuckles that go into the hoof on both sides. What I found in the past, if you don't skin the hooves out properly and get right up to the base of the hoofs, I'm going to use a buffalo hoof just so I can handle it a bit easier, is if you don't skin all the way to the base of the hoof here, you're going to find that the portion that isn't caped out, which is normally there, the salt cannot penetrate. And once your taxidermist soaks the skin back for its tanning process, all of the hair is going to fall out. All right, so it's very important that those leg bones are skinned either out, they can be left in there, providing you get down to the base of the hoof here, okay, and the salt can penetrate. Now on the back legs here, what I would suggest is you don't cut as far back as this, okay? This has been gutted, and as I said before, if this was going to be a full mount, we'd end up having to stitch this up and starting somewhere else. So hence the reason for knowing what you want to do with your game before you start chopping it. So I would have stopped probably about halfway there, okay? And I would have come up the inside of the leg, and then when you get to the back here, you can come to the back and then skin all the way to the back of the hoof there, okay? Do that the same on both sides. You open it up and you can just peel that same thing all the way through. You must always keep in mind, if you've got a certain pose that you want your animal posed in, that you know the taxidermist is actually able to do for you, you need to keep in mind that these incisions are just the common one, and that sometimes we actually skin animals dorsal, which means skinning them down the back. because the animal is actually going to be up high on the wall and you're going to be looking at it from underneath. So if that was the case, you're going to have a whole bunch of stitches here, which if you knew in the beginning, you could actually have the stitches on its back, which would never be seen again. And once you've completely removed the skin and removed all of the flesh from the skin, I would suggest that you lay the skin somewhere flat in a very shady, cool place, and rub some nice fine salt into this animal's skin on the flesh side. If you can, try and angle the skin onto a board or something where any of the juice or blood that's in that skin can actually run off. And you're going to find that after using the fine salt, that within half an hour you're going to see so much juice coming out of that skin. You'll find that the salt will absorb all of the blood and juice. You can then remove that salt and put a fresh batch of salt on that skin again, and still leave it laying out on the board, and just wait for that skin to start to dry up nicely, and wait for the juice to come away, and you'll find that you'll end up with no problems with hair slip. And also, when you're going to store that skin, whether it be for a week, a month or a year, that skin is put in a very safe place. And when I say that, I mean it needs to be stored in an area that's dry, where there's no moisture, where there's a bit of airflow, and you need to put a product around the skin that's going to prevent insects getting to it. I've had thousands of capes and skulls come in here that have been devastated by hide beetle, okay? And most of the time, the people don't even know they're there, because they get into the little nooks and crannies, and they just have a little party in there all by themselves. And when the cape gets shipped halfway around the world to a taxidermist and he soaks it back, it just falls apart. And it's the cause of what they call a domestic beetle or a hide beetle. So put some, what in this country we call muti, overseas you'd call it some sort of a powder that kills bugs, bagon, I suppose, bagon dust. We have a product here called Carbadust, which works the same way as bagon does. And just sprinkle it all over the skin, both sides, and you'll find that when that taxidermist gets that skin, he's going to be very happy, and he's going to be actually very happy to work on that skin as well, because it's going to be in good condition. Okay, we've got the tail here, which we're going to talk about now. It's a fairly straightforward process, but what you'll find on some animals that they're very, very bony and not very fatty, so it's going to be very difficult to skin this skin off of this bone. So what I would suggest is you get somebody to hold the end of the tail or tie it to something that's quite solid, and again use a very sharp scalpel or a very, very sharp knife, and work your way from the base of the tail, centre, and work your way up. Now if there's somebody standing here holding this tail, be careful you don't cut the fingers off. So just come up nice and carefully, that's why I mentioned tying it off to a tree, and skin all the way up the centre there, and very carefully start skinning that tail off. Now once you've removed the base of the tail from the carcass and a portion of this skin, you can sometimes, but be very careful, grab hold of that bone, hold the end of the tail, and you can actually peel that bone out and peel it away from the skin. But don't ever put too much pressure on that, because what you'll find is when you get to the thinner parts of the tail, it can actually tear right off, and you can end up with a stumpy-tailed bush pig. Okay, another subject I'd like to touch on is photography for taxidermy purposes and for your taxidermist purposes. If you're coming all the way from overseas and hunting game, you're going to find that when this stuff arrives back in your country, if the taxidermist is not familiar with working on this type of game, the more photographs you can give him for reference, the better your mounts are going to turn out. And what I would suggest is taking a lot of close-up photographs of facial detail, eye detail, ear detail, taking into account the shape of the ears, the way they bend, take it from different angles, because as I say, reference is just so important. And if you really, really want to get particular, you can take a tape measure and take specific measurements of this animal, and including the length of its face, nose and the front of the eye, the back of the head, its total length and girth. And when a taxidermist receives measurements, it gives him a good base to start with, and so he can actually get the process of doing your mount underway much quicker than having to wait for the skin to come back from a tannery, which could take 12 months. and he could have that mannequin and body made for that animal even before the skin arrives back from the tannery.